Welcome, everybody, to the Jim Masters Show Live, Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Talk Show series. It's so great to have you here. I'm your host, Jim Masters, and thanks for joining us. Hope your day's going well, and hope you're in the mood for a phenomenal and eye-opening and inspiring conversation from our very special guest who's actually coming to us today from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love. Meenal Lele is here. She's author of The Baby and the Biome, also founder of Lil Mixins, a Wharton entrepreneur, medical researcher, engineer extraordinaire, and so much more. We're really excited to have her here on the show. There's the actual book, The Baby and the Biome, How the Tiny World Inside Your Child Holds the Secret to Their Health. Yep, she's a mom and she loves being a mom. And we've had an opportunity to do some chatting before going on the air. And this has really been quite a journey for her, an emotional journey, a fascinating journey. She's got some real tenacity and real fortitude. She doesn't give up. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story. Now, gang, before we do that, we welcome you. Thanks for joining us here. Again, Jim Masters reporting for duty in the host chair. And we always have a good time. It's so cool to have you here. Couple of things. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Jim Masters TV. Feel free. You're all welcome to join. If you would like to comment on the Jim Masters Show Live during our show right now, maybe you have a question for our very special guest expert. This is one of our lifestyle episodes, health and wellness and lifestyle episodes of our entertainment lifestyle variety talk show series. So we're going to learn a lot. We're going to have a good time. I already told Meenal about our levity here at the Jim Masters Show Live and how that all happened. She's into it. She says, I love it. Bring on the levity. So she's good to go. She's excited that all of you are here. I'm excited that you're here as well. If you'd like to comment during the show in our JMS Levity chat room, you can do that when the show is live, which it is right now as we're live. And while you do that, in order to do that, just subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is the one you're watching right now. That is Jim Masters TV. The one you're watching right now. Say that 5 times fast. That's not easy. The one you're watching right now. Just try to say it once. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, there's no cost. Guess what happens when you do that? You get a chance to pop into that JMS Levity chat room that has a lot of comments and hellos and greetings already built up. Thanks, gang, for all the enthusiasm. And you can chat. You can actually chat amongst yourselves, say hi to one another. And we might even pop a comment or two on the screen, too, for all to see. If you'd like to support our series, this is something that we thank those of you who've been going the extra mile in doing that. In live chat in the chat room, there's super stickers, super emojis, and super chat, which I think is really, really cool and something special that YouTube has afforded us. So we make that available to our viewers. And if you actually enjoy an episode or something that hits a chord with you and your heart and soul, whatever it is, and you want to support all of our work and everything here at the Jim Masters Show Live series with its hundreds of episodes, feel free to do one of those, and that helps us. Or you can do a super thanks, which is a little heart icon that you see. That's on all of the episodes of our series. You see that little heart icon under the episode. Click that, and that helps support what we're doing here at JMS Live. Busy week for me. Stacked day today with radio shows, scripts. We were booking travel because I'm headed to Sacramento, California, then Chico, California, and then over to Reno, Nevada for 2 back-to-back television shoots later in the week. I'm going to be riding a horse on the Reno shoot. That's going to be cool. Not in downtown Reno. We're going to be going to Reno, and then we're going to be going into the desert a little bit and to a horse farm. It's going to be really cool. And then next week we're headed to Fort Lauderdale for a TV shoot as well. So and then of course all the other stuff, radio shows and other things that I do elsewhere. It's just very busy and it's fantastic. And somehow we still manage to be here with all of you and have such a good time with the Jim Masters Show Live. We welcome everybody from watching around the world, our international audience across the United States and Canada, South America as well. We welcome everybody in Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, North Pole, South Pole, East, West. You're all welcome here. So we say hello to our JMS Levity family, as it's called. And we love that. As I mentioned, we've got a really heartwarming lifestyle episode segment here with a very special guest, Meenal Lele. She's here from Philadelphia. And again, I just want to tell you a little bit more about the story. Then we're going to have her pop on. We're going to talk about Lil Mixins, but we're also going to talk about this extraordinary book that she is ultra excited about. And it really can be something on some level that might even be life-saving. Did you know that? Talking about how the tiny world inside your child holds the secret to their health. And that's really, really, really important. And we're so, when you have an opportunity to find out things through the research that others do, well, let me tell you, it's really beautiful work, and that's what she's been doing. Most expectant mothers eat well, exercise, take vitamins, and even abstain from caffeine and do everything possible to ensure the optimal health of their baby. Yet, what's really amazing is that children born today are sicker than in any past generation. Food allergies, asthma, other chronic health conditions affect up to 30% of kids across the country. And why is that? Well, in the baby and the biome, how the tiny world inside your child holds the secret to their health, author Meenal Lele reveals the answer. And it's not bad genes or bad parenting. Informed by extensive medical research and her firsthand experience as an allergy mom, she sheds light on the key role of your newborn's microbiome. That's the mix of bacteria and fungi and viruses that live in us and on us, in either preventing or provoking diseases of the immune system, which include not only food allergies and asthma, but also eczema, ADHD, IBS, type 2 diabetes, Crohn's disease, much more. Again, this can be very, very helpful. This episode of the Jim Masters Show Live series, it could be life-changing. It could be life-saving. It's just one of those episodes that, again, you're going to want to share. Feel free to share it with somebody you know that has children. This is actually, all of us needing to take care of our health, our well-being, mind, body, and spirit. Sometimes just not just treating the symptom, but figuring out the cause is the case and is so important. And that's what happened with Meenal, because her son was quite ill and she couldn't figure out what was happening. And she didn't want to give in or give up as a caring mother. So she really dug in deep, and this is some of the results. And she's been paying it forward in such an extraordinary, extraordinary way. So we're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about Lil Mixins, which is this really fantastic company that she created and founded, and a lot of other incredible stuff. So if you have questions too, tell your friends to tune in right now, because we can take some questions for our very special guest as well. Again, coming to us from the city of brotherly love, put your hands together, gang, and welcome our very special guest, Meenal Lele, joining us from Philadelphia. Meenal, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. This really sounds like this was quite a journey for you. You have your child and everything's going well, and all of a sudden you see things happening and stuff just doesn't seem, on the right path to overall health and well-being. Tell us about that journey, and when did you first start to notice some things that just didn't sit right with you?
Kind of now looking backwards, I actually can think about things that happened that didn't sit right with me. But one of the most interesting things about this phenomenon of children developing these diseases is that you're so often dismissed. So
Yes.
when I went to the pediatrician and said, "Hey, I think my baby's spitting up. It seems like a lot. Like he's breastfeeding, but oh, it's fine. Hey, my baby's having trouble, or hey, he seems itchy, or hey, he's doing this or that." And I think the challenge is that a lot of children, their issues are self-correcting.
Right.
And so pediatricians reasonably don't want to over concern, the parent, and they also don't want to throw medicine and drugs at every little thing that happens, right? We don't want to just
Oh,
kind of overburden the system. But in our case, it kind of led us down one path where one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. And I think the big turning point that I talk about in the book was really when he developed asthma, and the doctors told us that he would have to be on an inhaler and he'd have to use it every single day. And I don't, I'm not really sure why that was the thing that just sort of set me over the edge, but it did. There's something about this idea, and it was really this idea that he couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe without the help of a medication, and that just seems so wrong to me. Like he's a healthy kid. Like, why does he need this medication? And and that's really where we were. We were dependent on so many different medications. Um, I had a friend who actually put it this way, which I thought was really interesting. And she said, you know, your baby's your baby's eczema is not because they lack steroids, right? We treat eczema and some of these things with steroids, but our natural state is not to need steroids all the time, right? And so if we're not, we can't just accept that world where we're just glomming medications onto us, and we really need to understand what's going on underneath.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of those many wake up moments for me where I said, I really need to understand this because that's the only way to fix it.
So how old was your son? And do you have just the one son or do you have several
I have
kids?
two. No, no, I have two
And
kids.
and was it just the one son that was exhibiting these signs, that you noticed? And how early was that for him?
So the my older son, it was really around 6 months old where we started to develop the conditions that, even the doctors were like, oh, maybe that's not great. And my
Yeah.
kids are only they're less than 2 years apart. So sort of like your mom's family, right? But we stopped at two.
Yeah,
And
she's the youngest of 16. I
yeah,
for those who tuned in and never heard that story, my mom's the youngest of 16.
which
Yeah,
I still think is incredible.
isn't it?
The but you know, by the time my younger son was born, we actually had already started to realize that what was my elder son was dealing with wasn't normal, and so we were taking a lot of steps, and we could talk a little bit about the company Lil Mixins later, but that was one big step. My older son developed food allergies around 10 months old, and it was right after that that really clear data came out. The food allergies are almost entirely preventable. Like, we can train children's systems to tolerate foods. And so right
Yeah.
now we have 8% of children developing food allergies. And
Mm,
we doesn't need to be like that at all. It could be under
yeah,
1%.
right.
And so with my younger son, there was so much more that we knew. There was so much information, and maybe because I was paying attention, that when he started down the same path, we quickly nudged him off of it, you
Mm.
know? And that's really all it is. It's like I always think of it. You and I are old enough to remember the game Plinko.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I always think of it, it's like having someone born is like you drop that puck, and each random thing can take you down a path where you're more and more and more risk, and you get sicker and sicker. And random
yeah,
things can knock you the other way, and you can end up like, like this, or you can end up really, really healthy. But at every point, it's almost like a random, one way or the other. And that's really what it's like, even with our babies. And so it's as soon as you see it, if you knock it back towards healthy, you can get a kid to grow up happy and healthy.
that's incredible when you think about it. The book, what's fascinating about the book is you'll learn how to nurture your baby's biome during pregnancy and practice good biome care from the moment of
Mhm.
birth. And if possible, choose breastfeeding over formula to support immunity, but only exclusively for the first 2 months of your baby's life. Tell us about that. If somebody's listening right now, they're like, what does that even mean? And what should I be
Yeah.
looking for? It can be overwhelming because it's, having a baby's an emotional experience on many different levels.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. So I think, and that if we can keep that analogy in our head, right? So what we have is someone who, whenever somebody gets sick, what's really happened is they've gone past some threshold, right? And some threshold of basically risk. And what we're always trying to do is kind of keep bouncing below that threshold, right? And so what I want to be clear about is there's no single decision that you'll make that was definitively create a bad outcome. It doesn't work like that. Everything increases our risk, and some things increase our risk more, and some things decrease our risk more. But no one thing is the be all end all. And that's really important because people really freak out. Oh, I had a C-section. Now my baby's doomed. And no, your baby is not doomed because you had a C-section. And if your doctor's, that C-section could have been a life-saving, surgery that you needed. And so don't think about it that way, right? So if you have the C-section, there are things you can do to nurture your baby's biome, even though they had this massive dose of antibiotics so early in life. We can use some kinds of probiotics or just healthy eating. Breastfeeding is a good example. So breastfeeding, where that is really useful is a mother's breast milk contains human milk oligosaccharides, and those are usually called just HMOs. What's interesting about those sugars is that the baby can't use the sugars. A baby would just poop it out.
Yeah.
Who uses the sugars is specific bacteria that live in our guts. So really what the mom's breast milk is doing is feeding those bacteria. So they lay down a nice thick mucousy layer of that gut. And those are the healthy bifidobacteria we want inside the baby's gut, right? Now, what's interesting is with breastfeeding, for the immune benefits overall, they seem to start to taper off pretty early on, right? And after that, it's not really a big deal if you switch to formula. It doesn't make a big difference, I should say, in the overall risk if you switch to formula feeding, or even if early on you're supplementing with a little bit of formula, because those bacteria are still being fed, even if the mom's using formula. And again, even if you use formula, there's lots of probiotics that come with HMOs. So you can augment the baby system. So there's no one thing. And that's really important, because there's all these little knobs we have as parents where we can control things and make things a little bit better. And that's really the way to think of it, is take every opportunity we have to make things a little bit better, because that'll keep us below that threshold. And don't panic about any one thing.
So when you were realizing that your son had these various health related issues that you wanted to deal with, and really investigate and figure out, I picture you sort of rolling up your sleeves and getting ready to get in there and dig in deep to find, because sometimes, it could be like, I don't know, trying to have lunch with the Pope, trying to get through it all and all
Yeah.
the maze of it all, confusion, the paperwork, trying to get people on the phone, or it's not so easy. So for you, where does that passion, that enthusiasm, obviously the love of your child, but just the tenacity that can do, will not give up. I need to know, because if we can get this figured out now, his life going forward will be so much better. Not just ease the symptom now, but his life going forward will be much more healthier and more pleasant and enjoyable.
So, it's the second and third order consequences that people don't think about. And that's really what motivates and drives me, because it's easy enough to cook separate food, or, because of a food allergy. But one of the things people don't realize is that people with food allergies have really, really high rates of anxiety, reasonably, because something that's supposed to sustain us is now potentially deadly, right? So think food is such a safety net for most people, right? And if that gets taken
Yes.
from you, it develops real high levels of anxiety, depression, social isolation, all these other things that we don't really tend to think about, because we take food so for granted. But
Yeah.
imagine if you couldn't be in a social setting, or you were scared to be in that social setting, what that would do to your life, right? And it was when I was thinking about that's really what's motivating, is because, like you said, you're thinking about your kid's future. You want for them to have the option, right? I want my kid to be able to choose what he wants to do with his life, not be, held back by any one thing, especially if there's something I can do about it. And work is one thing that never scares me, right? I can always, roll up my sleeves and do more work. And so if that's the price, that's fine. And so I, as a medical, kind of researcher and things like that, I just dug in. You just pull one thread, see where it takes you, and pull another thread and see where it takes you.
I interviewed somebody in my professional, you'll probably really appreciate this. She's in Wichita, Kansas, and in my professional world, for a television news magazine series that I co-host with my co-host Doug Llewellyn, who hosts the People's Court TV series. I was sent out to Wichita, Kansas, to Wichita State University, and it was fascinating, because we were in the birthing unit. That was her expertise, is dealing with pregnant moms, helping them through the whole process. She's a professor, she's a nurse, she's all of it. And we were actually in the birthing units. We were, in the labs, all these places we don't normally go, because we were invited, with the camera person
Mm-hmm.
and myself as the on-air host and reporter. And it's amazing, because I've been sort of waving this flag ever since I was sent out to cover that story. And the bottom line to the whole thing, with the series of interviews and this 2 to 3 day shoot we did there, was the importance of the first 33 months of an infant's life, and how
Yeah.
the infant needs to bond with the mother, needs to be held, needs to be placed between the mother's breasts, because for some unbelievable magical way, the woman's breasts can actually sort of alter temperature. If the baby's cold, they warm up. If it's the other, it cools it down, which is fascinating. And also talking about these things, you talk about the allergies, the anxiety, the OCD, ADHD, the aggression, all these things that we are hearing that kids are dealing with now, peanut allergies. I mean, just a whole host of different things that we didn't necessarily hear as much of. Information is more readily available. There's much more, it's access 24/7, yes, but still some of these things have, I guess, been accelerated. And what she was talking about, which was fascinating, was we've a couple of generations, we've been pulling away from, in more recent generations, now it's sort of curving back, which is good, pulling away from that, the baby in the mother's arms and the father's arms, the tender touch, the skin to skin touch, the kangaroo care, having them held right here versus what you see whenever you go to, I don't know, an Applebee's. You see the parents walk in and the kid is being swung in what looks like a car seat. They're carrying the kid in a car seat like a pocketbook, as opposed to the kid here where they need to be and feel the warmth and love of the parent. I learned about all of that 33 months of the importance of that time period for an infant's life, and that the lack of that, the baby being taken away quickly and not all of that happening, or there's no bonding with the mother or the father, but especially the mother right away. And then the different, just the way that we've gone away from more of a healthier way of doing things. Everything's all processed and all of this overly processed. That has added to a lot of this. And that during that first 33 months, it's incredibly crucial. You've probably heard all about all that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that kind of keeps coming back over and over again. They call it your first 1,000 days. 0 to 3, basically. So many different systems just are set up during that time, and the way they get set up, it's like you imagine sort of like putting something in the freezer, right? And it solidifies, and the way it is at that age 3 can be permanent in so many ways. And whether that's a lot of immune inflammation, whether that's some basic, potentially some psychosocial things like you're talking about, but those first 1,000 days are where almost so much of our brain sets up, so much of our immune system sets up. And we have to be really careful about those early life insults, because they can leave scars that last for the person's whole life.
Very true. So it's important. So again, this passion, this tenacity. What was the process like? I mean, how long did it take for you to say, okay, we got to investigate this further, and then to really start getting results and start getting the answers to the questions that satisfied you?
Um, you know, there in different areas of it, I was getting answers, immediately, or as soon as he first developed his food allergies. I guess we sort of started, and then the book is written kind of like 5 or 6 years later after talking to lots of people. And I think where I was going, or where it was about building knowledge, right? So I started to learn stuff about food allergy, and then about asthma, and then about this and that. And then it was sort of kind of putting it all together and really seeing the greater story. And that was really important, because it was really all the researchers who do this, who do the clinical studies and everything, who really helped me kind of connect the dots, if you will, between stuff. And with that, you could sort of see the bigger picture. And it's really just been that there's a lot of research has come out just in the last 10 or 15 years, right? We didn't even know, to some extent, about our microbiome. Like, we knew it was there, I suppose. We didn't really understand it until very, very recently. And so much new research has come out that it's kind of blowing people away. And I feel like there's such a massive movement now. So cancer therapies, everything really just trying to use our microbes, whether it's the funguses, the bacteria, whatever inside of us, as actual treatments, prevention of many diseases, but also treatment of them.
Yeah, they're all talking about, the importance of all of this, which I think is amazing. Thank God that your child has a medical researcher for a mom in a way, because this is what you do, and it's
Yeah.
something that's a blessing. But what's great about it, and the importance of Lil Mixins, which we'll talk about, but also this book, is how many other people
Yeah.
it can help. That's the key. You've gone through the experience. I love when I talk to people who walk the walk, talk the talk. They've been there, they've done it, they've lived it. You've laid the groundwork, the blood, sweat, and tears, the sleepless nights, the hours of going through information and the research and picking up the phone. And really, it's almost like an election campaign in a way. You're just constantly at it, constantly digging, trying to put things together and connect dots. And you've done all that legwork in such a beautiful way and have it in the book, and it's ongoing for you, I'm sure. It can make it a lot easier and just at ease for
Mhm.
other parents who are going through something similar. Would you say, the book designed for? Is it designed for a specific reader, or is it for anybody?
I mean, it's really designed for anybody because all kids are gonna, potentially be subject to these things, these diseases. But I think the people most likely to pick it up are those who are sort of experiencing some amount of disease. And and half, I don't want people to get the wrong impression that it's all, it's all just science talk.
Right.
I try really hard to explain because what's going on, because what I found is that it's very hard to get people to change their habits if they don't understand why they should change their habits, right? It's one thing
Right.
if you say to someone, just like wake up earlier, right? And you've been hearing for your whole life, like wake up early. But you can say to someone, when you wake up earlier, if you wake up 10 minutes earlier, this happens, and then that happens. And then suddenly they're like, oh, yeah, that is the thing I wanted. And so now I have the motivation to do it, right? So that's really the goal of the only reason, or the goal of the science in the book, is really to give you the understanding of why this particular action matters and why this other particular action might matter more or less, or other things, or what your choices are, right? You can't really grapple with um, how much should I care about this one random piece of advice unless you understand how this piece of advice affects things. And it
Exactly. Yeah.
it was so I actually have this memory, when my son was probably about 2, and I think we were just out at the park, and I saw this mother. She was there with her baby, and the baby had to have been like, 5, 6 months old, and the baby had eczema all over his face.
Hmm.
And I wanted so badly to talk to her and tell her what that meant, because she clearly was undisturbed by it. And not that she could fuss over this constantly, but I just I was like, this poor child is going to go down this path. And if
What
I
does
just
it
say
mean?
something to
Yeah,
her,
with eczema, if somebody has it, is it tied to stress?
no. So eczema is the same disease as asthma and food allergy. It is an allergic disease. It is the same immune dysfunction that is exhibiting in the skin. And
Ah,
so your skin is breaking. It's
yeah,
the same histamine, a lot of the same cells involved actually that are
yeah,
causing basically this reaction.
yeah,
And the really bad thing about eczema though is that once you have cuts in your skin,
yeah.
like eczema is raw skin and things get in. And the more things that get in, because babies are constantly touching themselves, or you're touching their faces or whatever, is that your immune system gets worse and worse and worse because it recognizes that the body's under assault,
Isn't that
And
amazing?
so
I have a
it
friend
can.
who had it on the sides, like the
Mhm.
sides here, um, and for a long time, uh, he was born premature by 2 months, and
Mhm.
his brother as well, by 1 month, and had the eczema for a long time, and it has and he's always lotioning arms and moisturizing and doing all those things, but the eczema was really on the sides, and it's now sort of faded away. He
Yeah,
wasn't taking like a medicine or anything. It just sort of, isn't that odd how that happens? How your body
it
just sort
is.
of brings something
It is.
on for a
So
long time, and then it just says, "Okay, we're done with that one."
Well, our immune systems kind of go through the same peak. Like you'll see that very similarly, kids will start to develop seasonal allergies and they get worse and worse through kind of middle age and then they just start to get better. It's really this what you're seeing again is your immune system going into assault mode. But our immune systems actually get tired as we get older. So at some point they kind of quit. And so
Right,
your eczema
right.
gets better, but a lot of it is kind of your just immune system being like, ah, forget
Well,
it.
this is why the concern with everybody with the, the COVID situation
Hmm.
and the immunity and trying to have the immunity strong and seniors, obviously at risk
Hmm.
because immunity, like you say, is not as strong as it used to be. So that's a whole other ball of wax that's come into play as well. And that also is triggering some long haul asthmatic symptoms in
Yep.
people too, and the coughing and just really, it's amazing when you really look at it all. The book again, how long did it take you to write the book and actually put this together and be
Yeah.
finished with it where you're satisfied with it? And congratulations on it.
Thank you. You know what's funny is I wrote it in a month. I sat
You
down.
did.
Well,
Wow.
so because I've been doing this research and putting my notes together and talking
So
about this
this
with my
has been
friends.
a
My friend was
building.
like, "This is like you have a whole book here. Just like write it." And I was like, "I don't write books. What are you talking about?" And I've never done something like that, you know. And
Yeah.
she's like, just try it." You know, she's like, "You don't have to take my advice." And and so I just sat down. I said, "Okay, well, if it comes together in a month, great. Otherwise, like no big deal." And so I just sat down for 4 hours a day for a whole month and just wrote it. And then that was the draft that we basically eventually took to Penguin, and then then it went through 3 or 4 more drafts after that, like with just edits and stuff, suggestions from the editor and things. But in the so that whole process is really really long. But the
It
original draft
is.
came together in a
Yeah.
month.
Wow, that's fantastic. Congratulations on that. And a little bit more about the book itself. Um, you also talk about why many standard practices endorsed by pediatricians, that we all think
Hmm.
about are just the normal way of doing things. Wash your
Yeah.
baby daily, wait
Right.
3 days between introducing your baby to new foods, are not necessarily backed by science and might actually actively hurt your
Right.
child's immune defenses. Tell us about that because that might be very surprising to people because they're
Yeah.
probably doing all of those things they're being told now.
Well, yeah. Well, I hope people pick up the book because it's basically chock full of these sorts of things. But kind of going back to my why do we do things? When we used to think of all bacteria as bad, it made sense to basically bathe your baby constantly, right? Every day. Let's get them clean. Let's clean the stuff off them. Whatever they touch, let's clean them. It'll make them sick. And now we're like, uh-oh, a lot of that bacteria on them is really good for them. It actually
Mhm.
makes part of their immune system. It actually helps their skin stay strong. And
Right.
so now we don't want to wash them so much. We actually, they say you shouldn't wash your baby at all after they're born for the first 2 to 4 weeks. Like just leave them alone. So a lot of that natural coating, they're basically born in a waxy coating. Leave it on there because it makes a skin while their skin is really fragile. And then after that, maybe once a week, almost always, it's just water. Like you don't need soap, right? We all overuse soap. And again, because we thought we were trying to kill a lot of things and we don't need to. And babies don't have BO, like they don't need soap, for the most part. And so that's one example basically of where we've done a 180 because we realized the way we're thinking about the problem was all wrong.
It's amazing how that works, huh? How
Yeah.
we end up thinking one thing, kind of like they said, fat was the culprit. We're
Right.
realizing now we actually need some fat. Sugar is not so good,
Way worse.
and
Yeah.
how everything should be completely cholesterol free, but yet our brain needs cholesterol to operate.
Operate. Yep.
So it's like that's always been the confusing. Do you have the egg or not have the egg? Can we
Right.
have the egg or not have the egg? Somebody
And it's
decide.
tough. It's tough. All of science is, I say this a lot, but all of science is basically like pulling back layers of the onion, right? And
Right.
so when they on one layer they saw all this cholesterol in people's arteries, and they were like, all right, well that's bad. We don't want the cholesterol. But you pull back one more layer of the onion, and you're like, oh, but the cholesterol was actually a side effect of this other thing, and that's the thing we need to worry about. But
Exactly.
as we keep learning, we keep pulling back layers, and hopefully getting smarter and better.
That's right. Exactly. It's a learning process. You mentioned the eczema, that affects about 25% of infants, right? And it's not just a little rash, it's a serious
Mhm.
warning sign of a worsening immune system, which I
Yep.
think is incredibly
And
revealing.
again,
So I think,
even
yeah,
mild eczema can directly cause food allergies and it can directly cause environmental allergies and asthma because when that pollen and other stuff gets through the baby's skin, the body then says, oh, let me create an allergy to that because that's a bad thing. That shouldn't be
right.
inside.
It's
That shouldn't be
invading me.
inside my skin. It's
Right,
invading me, right?
right.
And so we really want to deal with and get ahead of eczema, as early as possible because that's really critical. That's one of the first, big warning signs.
Mm.
Taking care of your baby skin.
You also talk, it's really a very eye-opening, revealing book. And I'm sure this whole process, when you're concerned about your child, it's an emotional experience too. You were
Mhm.
genuinely concerned about things you were seeing. And I'm sure it was not stress-free and it was emotional on a personal level as well. You talk about things like why antibiotics commonly prescribed for things, a lot of kids oftentimes get the ear
Mhm.
infections, the fever, are often unnecessary and it can actually make a child sick longer, cause things
Yeah.
like diarrhea, among other complications as well.
Yeah.
Plus examples of when antibiotics are essential. Tell us about some of that.
Yeah, and this is going to be, this is going to be the challenge and the debate of the next 20 years in my mind because again, like we was talking about with soap, right? There's definitely things we want to clean off our skin. There's a lot of stuff we want to keep. We have no idea how to do one without the other. And antibiotics are like that. When we get an infection, we need to clear it with an antibiotic because you will get sicker and sicker and, potentially catastrophically, especially a small child, right? But almost 80% of ear infections are viral, so antibiotics don't help. And then even a bigger chunk will just clear on their own. But the challenge is we don't necessarily know which ones are viral. We don't know which ones are going to clear on their own, right? So are you willing to take that risk as the doctor? It gets tricky. And so there is this strong movement now to actually give the baby's body some time. Like don't intervene with the antibiotics unless you're seeing some of the signals like certain kinds of snot and other things that it's more likely to be bacterial than viral. And then actually like wait 3 or 4 days. And it's scary, but you want to see like if that's getting worse, then we step in. And if it's getting better, then we let the baby's body do it themselves because when we take the antibiotic, we completely wipe our bacterial systems. But that's also killing the bacteria that help us digest food.
Right.
And kind of going back to your COVID comment, one of the things I talk about in the book is all this research has shown that you can take a stool sample from somebody. So where you're measuring what their microbiome is and predict with 96% certainty, not only if they'll get COVID, but if they'll die of it.
Real in advance, you
Yeah.
can do that?
Yes. It's
Wow.
because that's what they were showing is that, or I guess maybe they did the studies and they were able to like use that map to, kind of predict it. And
Wow. I
it's
didn't know
because our
that.
bacteria are such a big part of our immune system, right? So imagine you take that antibiotic, you completely wipe your system. Well, what's left behind? Like it's a crapshoot. And
Pun
and so
intended.
yeah, yes, it wasn't pun intended. Hilarious. Okay, yeah. Unintentional comedy.
So, but
um,
that's amazing. So is it that the person that is gonna be more prone to COVID not working out too well for them or even getting it has bacteria in them that isn't the healthy kind, the good kind? And is that coming from these outside environmental things? Is it the food we're eating? Is it all the above, just living?
Largely both. Yes, because
Yeah,
you're constantly being assaulted by bacteria, so it's all of the above. And
all
I
of the
want to be
above.
really careful because there's very rarely just good bacteria and bad bacteria. It's no
Right.
such thing. It's like it's this complex ecosystem.
And that's what
We
you
do
always hear.
know,
I think the layperson always hear things are either this or that, and there's no
right,
gray. Yeah.
right, but it's very gray, and we don't really understand it. What we can say is that with people with certain kinds of, you remember your kingdom, phylum, class order. There's certain genuses and species or phylums that are fed by sugar. We mentioned sugar, right? And
Yeah.
those tend to be pro-inflammatory and kind of kick up our immune systems and make us do worse when we have COVID, right?
Yeah.
Or any other infection for that matter, not just COVID. And then there's other kinds of bacteria that are more helpful. So and that seem to be kind of have a calming presence. And so, but it's complex, right? So
Yeah.
it's a very complex system. But in the end, it always comes back to the same advice your mom was giving you, which is like, eat your
Right.
vegetables, get rest, get exercise, get sunlight, and all of those things.
Yeah.
It turns out why they're so good for us is because they feed the bacteria that help our immune system stay calm
I have a
and help
friend
us fight off
that's
disease.
I have a friend that's or like around 40, and for years, even probably since childhood, sugar was the go-to for him to make himself feel better, to
Hmm.
make him almost give him like a high. Like if the day wasn't going well, if he had that sweet thing or a lot of the sweet thing, he just felt great. He felt better. But then 15 minutes later, and also from carbs too, 15
Mm,
minutes later, snoring on the couch.
yeah,
Yeah, like not there's no like you have a little of something and then you sort of balance it out. It's like,
right.
"What? Okay, let's go do something." And then quick. And now still at that age of around 40 is still conditioned and is having such a hard time trying to
Yeah,
find, and this is somebody that's very athletic too, and still trying to find this replacement for what is gotten from derived from that sugar, which has been something that has been the go-to since childhood. That's
yeah.
how do you break a
It's
cycle like
hard.
that?
It's really hard to break it, honestly. Like I have a terrible sweet tooth, if I'm totally honest, and we make these cookies in our house that one of my friends who's a restaurateur, she gave me her recipe and she actually sells them now through Pure Fare, but she for these banana oat cookies, and they're incredible because they're just like four ingredients. It's bananas, oats, coconut oil, and these chocolate chips that her chocolate chips we buy are basically just pure cocoa, and that's it. It's like it's just a little bit of sweet, and that's it. I eat this one tiny cookie. It's actually not actually that bad for you.
Yeah.
You didn't eat anything terrible, and that's like the replacement. I've never been able to just go days without the sugar. That's my swap out, and that's enough.
Right.
And I think that's kind
Exactly.
of everyone has to find their like what's just enough, and how
Yeah.
can you do that? Sate that craving in the least bad way.
Exactly. Maureen, a nurse, many years now, retired in Arizona, big fan of our show, one of our lovelies. She goes, I'm just curious. I was allergic to strawberries as a child, but have, quote, outgrown it and now
Mhm.
eat them without any problem. How does that happen?
Well, if you want the inside answer, since you're a nurse, so when we have an allergy, what's happening is our body creates these specific kind of antibodies, IgEs, and it tags that food, right? And so in general, our bodies don't forget, right? The antibodies we don't forget; we have them forever. But it is actually possible to lose them over time. And so if in the presence of if you're overall healthy and your immune system is really really calm, and that sort of IgE system or TH2 system isn't constantly being excited, it does actually over time sometimes just forget. It's like, all right, well, we're just going to let that one go. And so you can lose those IgE antibodies and then you will no longer have the reaction. The other big thing that we talk about is our barriers and how important a baby's barriers are, and as adults, our skin, our gut, and our lungs. These are our barriers to the outside world, and we really have to be protective of them. So if you practice a lot of healthy habits and keep those barriers strong, that's another great signal to your immune system to just be like everything's going to be okay. And so it is possible to forget these allergies. um, it's not totally clear actually why some people just do it naturally and why some people like need medications and other things to do it.
She also said her daughter can't use certain antibiotics because of allergies. And when she
Hmm.
was 1 to 3 months old, this is Sherry Larson in Kansas, they couldn't figure out why she always had sinus infections, and they prescribed the antibiotics for that.
Hmm.
Kind of
Yeah,
interesting. Huh?
so yeah, it's really interesting, and one of the things we talked about is sometimes antibiotics can cause this cycle. So um, yeah, it's we really have to be careful about the antibiotic use, and of everything you've forgotten. That's the best. I like that comment that Maureen made.
Yeah.
Um, um, but it I think that's really one of the hardest things as a parent is to watch your child be sick.
Mhm.
And and choose to do nothing, right?
Right.
Because we have all this medicine at our fingertips and we just want to throw everything at the problem, but sometimes we that's actually not the right long-term decision. And we have to like restrain ourselves in the same way that like, doing their homework for them isn't going to be helpful in the long run.
Right. And you really literally get to the bottom of it all, because you talk about why to avoid using creams and lotions, including sunscreen, but also on your baby's skin, and tips for minimizing diaper rash,
Yep.
including cloth diapers, which are also better for the environment than the super absorbent disposable diapers. When I was a kid, that's what all the moms in our neighborhood
That's what was there.
out east on Long Island in New York, the diaper truck would come, and they were
Hmm.
cloth diapers. They was almost like a laundromat type thing, dry cleaning service that would come to all the houses. And there was no Pampers and all that kind of stuff. Again, I don't remember it. This is what I was told, but the diaper man would come in the truck, and it was all cloth diapers.
Yeah.
Then that's actually better.
I think it's better in a lot of ways, and I think the way that it's better is there's a lot of chemicals in diapers, and if you have plain cotton and you're not washing it in some crazy chemicals, then that's going to be fewer chemicals up against your baby's skin. And then also, uh, we think of their bum as like the exit, but it's from a bacterial perspective, it's also an entrance. And so same thing, like having a lot of chemicals there. I think one of the bigger things that people do is that I make a strong pitch for using water-based wipes. So there's, I think, probably even bigger deal than the diapers themselves, if the baby's skin is intact, is that we actually wipe them with just like a heavy chemical laden wipe, which is there's no way that's good for their gut bacteria, and instead using there's a brand called Water Wipes, and now Pampers itself even makes a pure water based one, or you can just do it at home. Same thing, right? It's just water on cloth.
Well, it's kind of
um,
like, everybody now has been using all the hand sanitizers and everything else, but
yeah,
then they found that sometimes
it's terrible for you.
overuse of these hand sanitizers, again, erases all the things you really need to help
Yeah.
fight off other things that want to come get you.
Plus, it leaves chemicals on your hand, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's which is very different than hand washing, and hand washing is always preferable because then you're using water, you're using friction and the soap, but it all washes away then. Whereas with the hand sanitizers, you leave a layer of chemicals on and then you
Absorb it.
eat, and so now it's all going into your system, and none
Yeah.
of that is good. Right? I mean, if you can, I understand in certain situations, but honestly, if you can wash your hands, that's the better choice.
Like for you during this whole COVID pandemic situation, what have been ways that you've been taking care of yourself, the family, and the kids in terms of that, the hands and everything else?
So, I took a very contrarian view about COVID, um, and partially informed by this, kind of understanding that pulling away from humanity and the viruses and bacteria that we exchange with each other and not being outside and all these things was actually very detrimental to us, and also just to our psychological health and for kids. But overall, my family, we're relatively young. We are, and my kids are obviously quite young. Um, we don't have any risk factors. And so we approach this as a flu. And, we wash like all the things you're supposed to do, which is wash your hands before you eat, but we never took excessive caution. And we actually made a point of kind of seeing friends and family and things like that, and kind of living our lives as normally as possible. But that was, you know, it just, but we happened to be in a circle where everyone was very low risk, right? So then, and I understand people made different choices, and that's fine. But that was, kind of how we approached it. Is that for us, the lockdown was actually going to be worse than the disease itself. And
You also talk about the importance of feeding your baby, which is really important. This is good for all of us, even
mhm,
as adults. So everybody write this down. Feeding your baby a good and diverse diet with priority on avoiding added sugar, which we've talked about, and all these processed foods. Of course, I remember all the shelves filled with the Captain Crunch and all the sugary
yeah,
cereals and everything that was so, they would say, fortified with all these vitamins, but underneath that was all the sugar and the processing,
yeah,
preservatives, dyes, synthetic fats, emulsifying agents. They're actually poisonous to the gut barrier. And coupled with that is the understanding now. We always talk about the heart and the brain and making sure those are operating at full function. But gut health is all the rage right now. People are understanding that a lot of things start here in the gut first, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the microbiome, your gut, and so inside it's not in your stomach so much as in your intestines and then your colon. Like that's where I think 70% of the bacteria live. I could be wrong about that, but it's a huge percentage, right? So when we're thinking about our microbiome, I mean, by default, in some sense, we're talking about the gut, and that's really all it is. Is a good diet, as we talked about a little bit earlier, is one that feeds the healthy bacteria,
Right.
right? And it keeps that. The barrier strong, right? We don't want to be eating or ingesting these chemicals that basically like punch holes through our gut barrier. We want to feed the good bacteria. We don't want to feed the bad bacteria. And that's really the thing about processed foods, heavy carbs, sugar, is that they feed certain phylum of bacteria that are just not particularly beneficial to us. That's not how humans have existed for the last few hundred years and longer, right? So, and I say this in the book, but it's like we want it to be different. But if you put vegetable oil in your car and said, well, it's oil, you wouldn't be shocked when the car stopped working. It's the wrong food for the car. and
Right.
and so we can't be that shocked when we give the wrong food to our bodies, and then it just kind of kaputzes.
They said if you put Coca-Cola in a radiator, it'll eat through the bottom of the radiator. So imagine what happens to your gut.
Don't tell my kids that because they'll try it.
Yeah, they'll try it on your car, right?
Yeah, exactly. Science experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Let's try it on mom's car. Also, you get into something further, which is really practical advice. And again, this is like a resource. It's like a handbook. It's like a guide. It's like a friend. This book. It's one of those kinds of books that you read, but you'll want to go back to, almost like a coffee table situation where you want to go back to it, pick it up, and like, she talked about that. I forgot about that. Let me go back to that chapter. You've got these tips and this information, which is so relevant, topical, and important for people in everyday living, that they can keep going back to and picking up more and more from the book. Things like cleaning your home, the dishes, the clothes, as well as your family's hair and body, to prevent the immune disorders, plus the potential long-term dangers of that national obsession that everybody has with the antibacterial cleansers and more.
Right.
Talk about the importance of all of that daily cleansing of ourselves, our homes, the dishes, the clothing, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of this comes to the adage, like everything in moderation, right? Because it's kind of like the hand sanitizers. Like there's a lot of situations where not using sanitizer is definitely worse for you than using sanitizer. But if you have access to clean water and soap, then do that instead. And so when it comes to cleaning our house, like we do want to kill off the pathogenic bacteria. So there's certain surfaces that we do want to use maybe the bleach on, right? Like we were cutting chicken on or something like that. Actually getting we don't cockroach dust and just the things that get trapped in our house, because we have such great our houses are really well sealed right now.
So like
Those can
airtight,
actually,
yeah.
yeah, they're airtight, and so that can actually breed mold, right? So we don't want mold. Mold is very, very bad. But
Yes.
so we do want to get rid of that, but we don't necessarily want to just be like zero bacteria whatsoever. So it's all about which kind of bacteria, right? And so again, this kind of comes back to like the dirt that I might track into my house from, the city of Philadelphia probably has lead in it. So I don't want that around. But like the dirt from my dog's dander is probably great to have around, actually. It's actually very beneficial to us. And so we kind of have to be a little bit, judicious. We can't just again, like you said, right? You just want to take one rule and apply it everywhere, but it doesn't
Right.
work like that. We can't just say like, it's all bad, dirt is all bad, or it's all good. And so yeah, so it's really being a little bit choosy. So if you're dragging in a little bit of dirt from outside in your backyard, and that's clean, good dirt without tons of fertilizer, you don't need to panic about that. You don't need to scrub your vegetables necessarily with soap. But again, if it's coming from your kid went to the park and there was 16 other kids sneezing and then touching the swing set, let's maybe get that off our hands.
Right, exactly, right, exactly. Also, you created Lil Mixins. That's really, really cool. Tell us about Lil Mixins and how that sort of formulated.
Yeah, so, again, it's all started with, like, we want people to have control. We want people to be able to do the things that help their children, and so when I found out that, most of my older son's food allergies were actually preventable, like peanut allergies, if you follow the protocol that was done, they're 97% preventable, right? That's
Mm,
insane.
yeah.
And the challenge is that it's not actually that easy to follow the protocol. You actually have to feed your baby from when they're very little a certain amount of peanut. You have to do it every in a certain quantity, a couple times a week, every week, and you have to do this for months,
Is this to build
right?
up the
And
resistance?
basically, it's a train tolerance, and it's a little bit more complicated than that. But again, an analogy I use is basically like what you're trying to do is put up baby gates so the baby doesn't. You put up baby gates so the baby doesn't fall down the stairs, and you put
Right.
them up before the baby falls, and you leave them up until the baby is walking well,
Is it
right?
similar to like when you go early on as a kid for allergy shots and
It's a
they look
little
to
bit like that.
see where the bumps raise? Okay, that's milk. That's
No,
this.
that's allergy testing, right? So that's
That's the
when we're trying to
testing.
see
And
if you
then
already
you,
have the allergies. Yeah,
right. And then based on what they're seeing, then they sort of
right.
devise shots that sort of get you. So if you come across that allergen, your reaction is going to be less than it could
No, no, no,
be
no. So it's not
before.
like that. So this is so again. So and nobody is born with allergies. Everybody develops allergy. And again, an allergy is a mistake your immune system made. And so what we're trying to do is prevent that mistake. And so the easiest way to think of it again is like the mistake of falling down the stairs, right?
It's
The baby will
fascinating.
only make
Yeah.
that mistake once, but we want to prevent that mistake. And so what we're trying to do is by basically teaching the baby to take the stairs, they don't fall down the stairs, right?
Right.
So we want to get ahead of the problem. And so we
Exactly.
basically are teaching the baby's body that this is a safe protein and how to tolerate that protein so that they don't develop the allergy. And but that requires actually doing this, a certain amount of the food every single week. And it can easily be part of a meal. It's one more thing to do as a parent. And there's enough happening, and they eat constantly, and there's a lot of diapers and all these other things. And so when my younger son was born, we decided to do this, and we were like, great, we're going to get on it. And we were like, wow, this is really, really hard. And we have time and we have resources in our household. Could you imagine what this would be like if you were a parent that didn't have what if you're working two jobs? What if you have two other kids running around your house? What are
Hmm.
you supposed to do? Just like hope for the best? And so that
Right.
was really the genesis of Lil Mixins, which is why are we making this hard for parents, right? And I kind of, an example is we don't make prenatal vitamins hard, right? We could tell women, here's a recipe for the amount of spinach you need to eat. Now cook this recipe every single day for 9 months of pregnancy. But we definitely don't do that because that would be crazy. And then no one would get the right amount of folic acid, right? And
Right.
instead, we say, here's what you need. It's already pre-done for you. Use this. And so that we don't have the problem and we don't add this burden onto your life. And so that's really what Lil Mixins is. It's like, here's everything you need in the exact system and the quantity and safety and everything that you needed so that you don't have to, it doesn't have to become a burden. It can just be a chance for you to take control and prevent allergies.
What an incredible thing you've created here too. We're showing our viewers exclusively the website. You've got so many different things that are created here. This is fantastic, huh? This has been a
Yeah.
lot of years of time put in and research and just to
Yeah,
develop
actually,
these
and we
products.
we have what's really exciting here is the only sort of probiotic line of its kind, and that was the same research. As I delved into the research, it turns out that most eczema is preventable. So 50% of eczema is actually preventable, but only this there's this one bacteria, L. rhamnosus, and if moms take it third trimester and through breastfeeding, it can prevent the onset of eczema. And so we said, well, again, why are we making this hard for people to find? Because eczema is the biggest cause of food allergy. So if we really want to get rid of food allergy, we also have to get rid of eczema, right? And eczema in and of itself is a terrible disease. So, we just are trying to give parents the tools that are very backed by science and, strongly recommended by doctors and things like that in ways that they can easily use them and incorporate them into their lives.
You can get the book at bookshop.org, amazon.com, Google Play, Barnes and Noble, and direct the website. A lot of different things here. Lilmixins.com is the website, gang, to go to. the book, more information about the book, but also the shopping all the products that we were just talking about. For people that are saying, is this all natural? Is it all
Mhm.
organic? How do you describe that when they have those questions?
It is, don't you worry. Yeah, we
Right.
use, we start with organic foods, and really all we're doing is dehydrating them and powdering them so that there's no chance of a baby choking on them. They can be easily mixed into any food that the baby's eating. We use the highest quality ingredients, and there's a lot of detail on the website about how we manufacture and everything, and the partners we work with. But we want this to be easy, right? We don't want compromises. And I think one of the biggest things that's different about Lil Mixins than a lot of other companies is we actively encourage parents to stop using our products when they don't need them anymore. People will say to
Mm,
me, "Hey, how come your products are only labeled for 4 to 12 months old? Why can't I use this afterwards?" And I say, "Well, because your baby can eat real food. Please just feed your baby real food. Don't, you know, don't use a product when you don't need to anymore." And so anyway, so
right.
I take that stance that we should always, we don't want to overburden parents in any way, financially as well.
That is so cool. What's been the response to everything thus far? I'm sure you get a lot of people. Eventually happens over time is, they start pouring out their heart to you and the things that they've experienced, whether
Hmm.
they're emailing or they're reading and responding to the blog, or they're sending letters or whatever it may be. I would imagine it's kind of heartwarming and special
Yep,
when you get those personal stories from people who are
it
responding
is.
to what you have made really a calling in your life here.
Yeah, I think the most gratifying thing is when people say, "Well, this really helped me," or somebody, reached out and said, "I couldn't get my husband to take our kids' eczema seriously, and then after reading this, and he was like, oh, I didn't realize like what a big deal this was, and now we're tackling it, and it's not a fight in our household anymore." So that was important. And there's been a couple people, actually close relatives and friends of mine, who their children were kind of like in that Plinko game, we're kind of going down the danger path. And they were able to call or like use the information from the book and say like,
Yeah.
should I be doing this? And then actually took it back the other way. Like a child who
Wow.
actually started to develop the allergy, and enough that they went to a doctor, and, kind of using strategies from the book. 3 months later, the kid was totally fine, because in early infancy, a baby system is very flexible. And so now that kid's going to grow up, which is without the burden of the allergy, right? And that's awesome. That's awesome to think about. Like every single kid that you can offer the opportunity to have a healthy life is worth all of it.
What are some of the overall takeaways that you hope readers get from the book? And again, congratulations on putting this resource together, because I know it's literally a labor of love for you and has been.
Um, I think that I really actually, one of the things I hope people recognize is, like I mentioned before, is all the ways in which these diseases are challenging, right? It's
Yeah.
very easy to dismiss food allergy. It's very easy to dismiss asthma or something that's just like, okay, you take a medication. But I really hope that that comes through in the way myself and my son have struggled. But the other side of that, of course, is the sense of control. And that was really what was taken from us when my kid got sick. It was like the world was happening to us, and there was nothing we could do about it. And it was just every day was wake up and see if we were going to be sicker or not. Right. And that's a horrible feeling, to not be in control of your destiny. And I really hope that parents, what they take away from this is that sense of like, hey, I don't have to just wait and find out if my kid's going to have an allergy. I don't have to just wait and find out if they're going to be sick. I could just do
Right.
something, and then they won't be.
Hey, cool, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
amazing. Do you see another book in the offing?
um,
You've been asked
that's
that
funny.
before, haven't you,
I've been
huh?
asked that. I've been asked that.
Yes.
I said, well, I wasn't supposed to write the first one, so I
Right.
don't. I don't know.
Part one of an exclusive series here.
Yeah.
You heard it
I don't
first.
know. I was like, well, but because I said to one of my friends asked me that. She said, well, you could have it in the second book. And I was like, no, but you see how many things had to go wrong for me to write the first book? I don't
True.
want more things to go wrong.
You to have to have reasons to write the book. How is your son today?
He's great. And we talk about this in the epilogue, but he's off all of the medications. We had we had like a pharmacy going in his bathroom
Yeah.
basically at one point, and he is off all of the daily medications, and he's still, his immune system still kind of hates him. But there's like a lot of the burden has been taken off, and it's like, his life is much more he's not in pain, and like, you have any kind of like seasonal allergies, and that sort of sense of just like
Yes.
you just feel awful, right? Like he doesn't feel awful anymore. And that's, it sounds like a low bar, but
I'm not
it's
fond of the ragweed.
exactly right. And so he doesn't feel terrible anymore, which is amazing. And so we still have a journey ahead of us in a lot of hope and belief that we're going to be able to completely cure his food allergies. But at this moment, he's in a good place, and that's really all that matters.
That's the bottom line. Absolutely the bottom line. Wanted to mention too, the writing of the foreword for the book, um, editor in chief of the journal Allergy, the leading allergy immunology journal in the world. Is that Dr. Sesmi Agdis?
Chesme
Tell us,
Actis. Yeah, it's
yeah, tell us about, he-
Dr.
yeah,
Actis. He's a
yeah,
really interesting guy, and he's so this is actually kind of one of these things where the book seems fated to be, where I'd say in the book, like, how I learned all this stuff is I would read people's articles, and I would just cold email them or call them and say, like, did I understand this correctly? Would you help me? Would you talk to me about it? And a lot of people say, sure. What do they got to lose? They want people to understand the research. And I wrote this book, and I actually sent it to Dr. Actis as like one of sort of the leading voices in the world of allergy and immunology, to say, would you read this and would you tell me if I got anything wrong? And do you agree with this, or am I miscategorizing anything? And he actually wrote back, and he did give me a couple bits of feedback, thankfully very small, but he's like, this is great. I absolutely love this book, and I think you did such a great job of explaining this to regular people. And so then I said, well, would you consider writing a foreword for it? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, I don't know him well. And like I said, I can tell you that when I told some of the doctors that I work with that he was writing it, they went, wow, really? How did you get him? I said, I just emailed him.
isn't that cool? Wow,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So he believes in it, and
Yeah.
somebody
He
who
very
read the
strongly
forward
believes in it.
is endorsing and believing in it, which is fantastic. The website lilmixins.com is where you can find really everything, all the resource, all the information, folks, for those that are watching live and for those that are going to be watching this later in the archives. This was fantastic. This was very eye-opening. I think you broke it down in layman's terms in a very user-friendly way, and you also, sort of took the veil and opened it up behind some myths and mysteries of health and wellness, really not just for children, but
Right.
for all of us, because there's a lot of things we think and that are, passed down through generations of life. And you just think, okay, that's the thing you're just supposed to do. Everybody else did it, and that's just what you're
Right.
supposed to do. But sometimes if you don't question, you don't learn, and you don't know, and you don't find better ways of being healthy and extending the health and wellness and the balance in the life that we need, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I gotta say, like, in your levity
I love it.
movement, this has been a lovely conversation. I really appreciate all the questions and all the thoughtful questions that you brought. You had, and it's really clear. I know you said what is this, 800 episodes in, right? And it's really clear, the rapport you're able to create with everybody, and pull out all the important details. It's really awesome. It was lovely to speak with you.
Oh, my pleasure as well. We'll stay connected because, love to hear how you're doing, the family's doing, and other things that you're working on, that you're researching that might be fascinating for us to hear about. You are absolutely welcome back anytime, and spread the word about the Jim Master Show Live series.
Absolutely.
And I hope the show met whatever expectations you had and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you.
I absolutely did. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and good luck with all your travels coming up.
Yeah, I know we're headed all over the place. I know. We will be washing our hands.
That's important.
We just won't overdo the sanitizer.
Yep.
You be well and you take care. And thanks for all of this wonderful information, wit and wisdom you dispensed. And again, it's invaluable and on certain levels could be potentially life-saving. I want to say Maureen in Arizona the retired nurses. Thank you so much for this conversation, Jim and Meenal. I learned so much, Meenal. I pray your little boy keeps growing strong and healthy.
Thank you so much, Maureen. It's
Absolutely.
such kind words.
Yeah, I concur. You be well, and thanks for joining us, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. And congratulations and continued success with the book and Lil Mixins.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye now. All right, gang. Isn't that fantastic? And here is the book again. You can take a look at it right there. Here is the website for all the lovelies watching all around the world. And if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live. There's the website as well. And again, what a fascinating conversation. Here we got a chance to super serve the book and Lil Mixins, but also talk about overall health and well-being for all of us. You know, some of the myths and some of the things that have been dispelled that we think about everyday living, what's good, what's not good, things that you should do, things that you shouldn't overdo. You know, really cool, huh? This is one of our lifestyle feature episodes of the Jim Master Show Live, talking about health and wellness for you and your family, children, and so much more. Starting off really early, like she said, with the babies, with the infants. And this could be a great resource for somebody you know who has a young child or is going to be having a child. Maybe you're a grandparent, whatever it may be. Meenal Lele was here, author of The Baby and the Biome, founder of Lil Mixins as well. And in addition to all of that, gang, she's got an extraordinary background. As I mentioned, mom of 2 boys, medical researcher, also a chemical engineer with a degree from the Wharton School, founder of CEO of Lil Mixins, which is a company devoted to educating parents how to prevent their children from developing allergic diseases. And she makes her home there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Cool stuff, gang. We're always giving you our best here at the Jim Masters Show Live. Every episode is unique, different, special. We have poignant moments, education, information, entertainment, levity, something for everybody. And every show is something different. So we hope you found value with this cool episode here. Again, I even got some of my questions answered by Meenal, some questions about some myths that I was thinking about, that you're always told. And she questions everything and she digs in deep, which is so important because she does the legwork literally for all of us. So cool stuff. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're having a good day wherever you're watching around the world. Yes, gut health related to brain health. Absolutely. You got that. I think you mentioned that. Colleen, it's good to see her as well on the Jim Masters Show Live series. Something really you can take away from this episode is good, common sense, logical information, and a great resource that you can pay forward. Spread the word, maybe share the link to this episode on your social media, whatever it may be, whatever you found of great value from this episode of the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Talk Show series. Thank you very much. Colleen says, thank you for all the information today. You're welcome. My pleasure. And Meenal as well. Thank you, Jim. Great show. Kathleen, I know Kathleen, our Mets are out. Now it's up to the Yankees to win. What an amazing guest Meenal was. Her book should be provided by every pediatrician with baby's first office visit. Great idea. If they were in all the offices, I absolutely agree, my friend. And Linda in Florida, thank you, Jim, for another great show. The pleasure is all mine. We wanted to put something special together for you here. Again, every episode of our series is something unique and special. That's why we don't box ourselves into just one kind of topic. It's good variety like talk shows used to be. Thank you, Jim. Interesting show from Colleen. Good to see you as well. And thanks to all of you for watching. This was a pleasure to have you here. Want to let you know tomorrow we're on a little bit earlier. We're on at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. So that's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Renowned composer Michael Shapiro is going to be here, and he's going to unveil a brand new score. Now, he's been a composer for 40 years, music for film and television and stage and so much more. He's extraordinary. He's a legend. He's going to be with us tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on the Jim Masters Show live on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. And he's going to be unveiling just in time for this time of year. It's October, Halloween coming. He has written a new score for the 1931 original film, Frankenstein. That's going to be amazing. And that is coming up tomorrow right here for you on the Jim Masters Show live entertainment, lifestyle, variety talk show series. Gang, thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you here in our company. We're going to scoot off, and wherever you're watching around the world, it's always a pleasure to have you here. So again, as we always say, take care of one another, be good to one another, take care of yourself. Don't forget to love yourself. Wash those hands. Just don't overwash them. Use the soap and water. And we don't say goodbye. We say moi loop. See you later. Ciao, cheers, shalom, hasta la vista. We say sayonara, and just be well. For all of us here, I'm your host, Jim Masters. One more time, there's the book, Baby in the Biome, How the Tiny World Inside Your Child Holds the Secret to Their Health. We thank our very special guest, Meenal Lele, joining us here on the Jim Masters Show live. She was awesome. And we congratulate her on the book and all the incredible stuff that she's doing. She's it's like really a life mission for her to do good work. And she certainly is. Gang, we love you all. Take care. We'll be back on the next episode. Again, we're earlier tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, with composer Michael Shapiro. And we look forward to you then. And don't forget, you can binge watch hundreds of episodes. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. We have guests that come in from Broadway, Hollywood, television, film, music, stage, culinary arts, sports, inspiration, health and wellness, everything, all of life right here for you. Don't forget to give this episode a like, leave a comment on our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that thumbs up you see there on the YouTube channel on that episode. That helps us grow. We appreciate that. Leave a comment for us on the YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe. Yes. There's no cost when you subscribe, gang. Just click that red button, and that is it. That's it. You're part of the JMS Lovity family. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss any of our episodes. That's right. You'll be alerted about all the episodes. All right. Gang, you guys are fantastic. Thanks for all the comments, all the lovity. We'll see you on the next one. I'm your host, Jim Masters. Thank you for your time this time. Till next time, I'll be right here in Lovity Hall, waiting for all of you. Hope you enjoyed the show and found some value out of it. And there's a couple of takeaways for you, or that you can pass on to other family and friends, which is cool. Gang, be well. Take care. Take care of yourself. We'll see you again soon on the Jim Masters Show. Cheers.